Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another webinar in our Get the Most Out of GoAnywhere series. Today, we're going to be talking about the security benefits of using our Secure Mail and Secure Folders modules, as well as GoAnywhere Gateway. You might have joined because you're a current GoAnywhere customer and you're interested in trying them out or learning how to use them better. Or maybe you're completely new to GoAnywhere and just want to learn more about the product. Whatever your reason for joining, we're glad you're here, and we'll do our best to help you out with the info you need today. So before I introduce our speaker, a few housekeeping notes. We are recording this event, so after the webinar is over, you'll receive an email from us with a link to the recording in case you miss any parts or want to share it with a colleague. The event is scheduled for an hour. If you have any questions throughout the event, please submit your questions through the Q&A window, which is at the bottom right of your screen. And to make sure we don't miss any questions, please send your question to all panelists. We have some team members on the line, and they'll be monitoring for questions, and we'll also try to answer some questions live at the end of the event, pending time. And lastly, at the end of the webinar, you'll see a quick survey pop up. Please do fill that out. It helps us understand how we did and what was most helpful to you today. And if you need any follow-up from our team, please be sure to mention that in the comments. All right, so I'll introduce today's presenter now. Presenting the content today is Chris Bradley. Chris is the lead technical writer for the GoAnywhere team, which means he knows the product inside and out and will be a great guide for you today. So with that, Chris, I will let you take it from here.
All right, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you just fine.
Perfect. Like Brooke said, my name is Christopher Bradley. I'm the lead technical writer for Help Systems, and I have been involved with the development team, training, and technical writing for GoAnywhere suite of managed file transfer products for over 4 years. In today's webinar, I'm going to talk about a few common ad hoc file transfer security challenges that companies encounter with their employees and how 2 of GoAnywhere MFT's file transfer solutions addresses those challenges. Then I have a few live demonstrations prepared to run through a few use cases at a high level to show how to implement these solutions in your organization. Then I will briefly mention our GoAnywhere Gateway reverse proxy and how it further helps to the security of your environment. And if there's time left at the end, I'll open it up for question and answer. So what are some common file sharing email challenges that people have? So email is probably the most ubiquitous file sharing platform in the world. Everybody has email, but it's somewhat of a limited way to share files. Email is very old, and it was built around the premise of sending alphanumeric characters over the web. File transfers was something that was added on to email much later in its life, and email is just not really made to handle big, large file transfers. So in your organization, you probably have tons of file size or file type limitations that you're not going to let your users send and receive for email to protect your network. If you need to have reliable read receipts, if you have like service level agreements that you need to send files to people and the timing on the files are critical, email doesn't have really great reliable read receipts. You can't really confirm when critical files are received when you're using email. And if you're sending and receiving messages and you send out a message that has data that you didn't want to get out to the outside of the network, you can't recall that message once it's made it to the recipient. There's really, once a message is sent, there's no calling it back and bringing it back. If you have sensitive files you need to email to a trading partner, there's not a lot of ways to ensure that it's going to be encrypted and secure end-to-end when you're using email. With other ad hoc file transfers, when you're trying to transfer files between diverse architecture that requires third-party tools, a lot of your users are limited. They can't send something over 10 meg over email, and so they're going to look for a cloud solution like Dropbox or FileZilla. If they're going to find FTP, they're going to find all these different third-party tools that they're installing inside of your network to send files that you don't know about. Sometimes if you're working with Amazon or Azure cloud connectors, say like an Amazon S3 bucket or Azure cloud, your users are sharing credentials amongst themselves. So they might have a single account that they set up in Amazon IM, and they're creating config files, and they're using third-party tools like Cloudberry to share those config files and sending those connections to other people in their team. And so there's no central administration. You have no idea which users now are uploading and downloading files, and you have no access control over that. So once you've created, say, an Amazon account, and you've sent out the configuration and, like, say, the secret key or the access key to that S3 bucket, and somebody shares that with somebody else, and they all have complete access to that folder, there's no access control. People are downloading, sharing files. And if you're using mixed network, if you've got FTP and you've got Azure, where is all the activity for all of those file transfers being logged? Is it across a bunch of different systems? And how easy is it to identify when these files are accessed or modified? And if people are sharing files through email or FTP or through an Azure connection, how do we know that those files are encrypted and protected properly so that they're only accessed by the right people? So what is GoAnywhere MFT? If you're an existing customer and already have GoAnywhere for Managed File Transfer, hold tight for just a moment so I can quickly go over what Managed File Transfer is and how it works for your enterprise. At its core, GoAnywhere streamlines the exchange of data between your systems, employees, customers, and trading partners. So how does it do that? Well, it starts with workflow automation, and it replaces your legacy scripting with project workflows that handle the file encryption, compression, and data translation of your files. So for example, you could replace your shell or bat script with a project in GoAnywhere that connects to an SFTP server, downloads an encrypted CSV file, decrypts the data, moves it to a database, and then archives the CSV file in a new location. Now, it does all of this through an intuitive drag-and-drop user interface without any coding involved. And for this workflow automation, you can run these jobs on a scheduled basis, so you can set up and run these jobs in advance, or you can create things called folder monitors, which will look for new files in different FTP locations and automatically kick off a workflow to process those files. And GoAnywhere MFT can be installed on nearly every platform, Windows, Linux, IBM I, Unix, Macs, and it provides file services like SFTP, SCP, FTPS, FTP, AS2, and HTTPS, and it can work with all sorts of different file services like SMB, email, WebDAV. It can connect to cloud computing, so it can connect to Amazon, Azure, and web services through SOAP and REST connections. And it can connect to and work with almost every database, so SQL Server, MySQL, DB2, Oracle, you name it. So it can also be integrated with your existing applications. So if you have applications that you want to integrate your automation with, GoAnywhere can work through with scripts and programs and commands. And it can also integrate with other applications like MQ and SNMP or ICAP. So it can do all of this without installing any software on any third-party PCs. All of these software is built into GoAnywhere to make all of these connections and do all of this managed file transfer. But we also have agents, and agents are a small piece of software that can be installed on any system throughout the enterprise, including cloud, and they can be managed by a central deployment of GoAnywhere MFT. So you can configure and schedule agent file transfers from business processes from all over your network. So these agents run outside of the network, and when they find files or information and data that needs to be processed, they can call up to GoAnywhere for instruction, and GoAnywhere will send the instruction back to the agents, where the agents can process those files and move those files across any of the applications or databases or file services that the agents have access to. The administrator interface can be accessed from any modern browser, and system alerts are built into the system that will immediately notify you of any issues that occur on the system. And these can be integrated to a syslog server. So if there's any kind of failure in GoAnywhere, that's causing file transfers not to work. An administrator user can be notified, and then an alert can be sent over to a syslog server. So if it's like 3 a.m., your IT department can be notified, and you can be alerted, and we can figure out what the issue is there. And then every event that occurs throughout the system for all the different file sharing and data movement in your enterprise is recorded to a log. And this reporting module can contain 24 different predefined system reports, as well as tools to create your own reports. So we have audit logs, which monitor all the file transfer services and files coming in and out, and the web user actions that are going to happen in GoAnywhere. And then we have a separate reporting module with the 24 predefined system reports and the reporting tool to create your own reports. So while all of this can happen in GoAnywhere, I'm going to be focusing on just 2 of our ad hoc modules, the Secure Mail module and Secure Folders. So what is Secure Mail, and how is it going to help with our email issue? And so I've got a quick little diagram to step through. So when an employee uses Secure Mail to send a file to a recipient, when that email is sent, it's actually sent through the GoAnywhere MFT server. The package or the file upload is going to be stored on GoAnywhere MFT, and it's going to be AES 256-bit encrypted, and an email notification is going to go to the recipient with a link to download the files. So that email notification can have a password. So they'll get the link and the password, and when they select the link, they're going to download that file directly from GoAnywhere MFT securely over an HTTPS connection, and the file is going to be unencrypted and then sent to the recipient for them to view. So Secure Mail can be sent from within a user's web browser, or we have a Microsoft Outlook plugin. Users can log into the web client with their LDAP Active Directory, and we have SAML single sign-on. So if your users need to connect out to the web client, they don't need to bring new credentials. They can use the credentials they're already using to log into the network. So we want to make this very easy for them. The easier the Secure Mail is, the easier it is for your users to adopt it and stop using their other file sharing methods and move to Secure Mail. URL links are sent to the recipient, and that includes a randomly generated UID. So it's a random string of characters for a link to that package. And then the passwords are used to open the message. And those passwords can also be sent in an external separate email message. Now, because the file is encrypted automatically on the server and is sent or downloaded through a secure HTTPS connection, the senders and recipients between the files don't need to worry about any keys or certificates, and the user who's going to send the file doesn't have to worry about setting up encryption for the file because everything happens automatically. And there are no file size limitations or file type restrictions, and the only caveat I say to this is unless you want there to be. So while GoAnywhere is designed to allow you to upload a file size of any limitation and any file extension, an administrator can limit those on the network if there's some file sizes that you just don't want users to upload into your network, or if there's a certain file type that you just don't feel comfortable to ever come across your network. You can set up those limitations. And with Secure Mail, multiple files can be attached to a single package. So it's not just one email, one file. You can upload hundreds of files in a single package and then send that link to all the links to the user so they can download the files one at a time or as a zip file. And then, of course, a sender can recall packages. So since we're only going to be sending a link to the user, and the files are stored in GoAnywhere, we can go into the web client and we can shut off that link and make it so that the package cannot be accessed anymore. So if a file does get outside of the organization and you need to recall it, we can go look at that, like ensure that no files have been downloaded, and if not, we can go ahead and recall that package. So let's jump into a live demo of Secure Mail. All right, so I've got the web client open. Users can log in with the unique credentials stored in GoAnywhere, Or like I said before, GoAnywhere can sync user accounts from Active Directory or LDAP servers, so users don't need a second set of credentials to remember. GoAnywhere also has SAML single sign-on, so if the user is already authenticated through an internal website or internal portal, the web client will log them directly into the web client. And what I didn't mention before is we also have Radius Secure ID for two-factor authentication into the web client. So if your users are already using secure tokens or key fobs, they can use them to log into the web client as well. And then the web client branding can be updated to suit your company needs. So if you want to update the logo with your company or change the disclaimer to something about your security policy, you can do that as well. So I'm going to log in with a user account that I've created. Okay, my session might have timed out. I have had my window open for a little while. Try again. There we go. Okay, so I've given this web user access to only 2 of our ad hoc file sharing features. There are more features that were discussed in other webinars, so if, later on in the webinar, Brooke is going to talk about some of the other webinars that we have done in the past, and so you can learn all about even more of the ad hoc features that are available. I'm going to go into the Secure Mail module. So Secure Mail, it's just like an inbox. Anything that you have in email is going to be immediately familiar to you with Secure Mail. So it does have an inbox, and I'll explain that in just a second. You can compose a Secure Mail message. We have an ability to request files. So if you've got an organization where you regularly need to get files from outside of your organization, you can use the request files features to send a link to a user where they can upload files to you, and then those go to the inbox. We have a draft, so if you're composing messages, you can save them for later. And then you can create some Secure Mail templates. If you've got a regular user that you've got kind of like a form letter that you need to send to regular users, you can create templates so you can reuse that over and over again. An outbox for Secure Mail messages that are being ready to send, and then sent items where you can see all the Secure Mail messages that we sent. And then there's also an address book. So if you've got contacts or groups of contacts that you want to regularly send Secure Mail messages to, you can use the address book. So I'm going to compose a quick message. I'm going to send this to myself. Now to upload files, I can drag and drop the files directly from my desktop, or I can browse to attach files. So I'm just going to go into my desktop and I'm going to grab a file. And it's going to upload the file to the server. And then when I click send, it's going to give me options. How do I want to protect this package? So right now it's going to default to the UUID. So it's going to send just a unique URL to the user to access the package, but I can also password protect the package. And I can let the system generate a new password automatically, or I can specify one. And then if I want, I can include that password in an email, or I can have it, I can not include the password in the email, and then I can give that user the password in a different format. Maybe I can call and tell them what the password is. So, or another method. I can limit downloads. So if I only want this user to download the file 10 times, or if I only want them to download 2 times or 1 time, I can specify how many times they download, and then after that download has been, that max has been reached, they can't access the package anymore. And then I can allow them to reply, so they can reply to the message, and then they can upload files to me on message reply. So I've sent the message, and what the user is going to get, the recipient, I'm going to grab, here we go. So the recipient's going to get a Secure Mail message that's going to look like this. The following files have been sent to you from the email example. It's password protected package, so I can grab this password. I can click here to download the file, and then it lists the file, so someone sent me the automation server requirements, so I can click to download the file. It's going to take me to the GoAnywhere web client where I can specify the password. And then now that I can come in here, I can read the message. Please download the requested files. This is the message I specified in the portal. And then I can download the files directly here. Now, as I download the files, on this package there was 9. As I download the files, it's actually ticking down to show that I can only download this so many times. I can also reply to the sender. And then if the sender allowed it, I can add an attachment, and I can give them attachment that's going to be sent back to their inbox. The package is being sent. So with that secure mail message being sent and then the user accessed it, I can go into the sent items folder, and then I can look and see, I can select one of the messages and I can see the activity for this message. And if I find the message that I sent, by reading the activity I can see the maximum amount of downloads, and then I can look at the activity of those secure mail packages and see, is this package, at least on this one, there was 2 total, no downloads yet, but I can see all the activity that happened on the web client. So the attachment was successful, the package was created successful, and it went out to the user. So if I grab one, let's see. So this one's still waiting. Now, if I sent the wrong information, if I sent a wrong PDF or I need to recall a package, I can look at this and see this has 0 downloads, 10 remaining. There's no, hasn't been any activity. The files haven't been downloaded, which is great. So I can come into the secure mail sent items and I can revoke this package. I don't want this package to go out to the user any longer. So I revoke the package. And now the next time the user tries to select that link, they're going to get an error message telling them that the package is no longer available. So I've pulled that message back and the user won't be able to see it anymore. If we sent a file request, so if we use the file request feature, the user is going to get a message very similar to the other secure mail message asking you to upload your files. So they're going to be provided a link to upload the files. And so please use the link to upload the files. They can grab a new file, send that file, and then in my secure mail inbox, any packages that they send me are going to appear in the secure mail inbox, and then I can download the files that they also provided to me. So this is kind of two-way communication. So you can securely send messages and large files to your users, and then your users or recipients, they can send those messages back to you. Now, if you want to use the Microsoft Outlook plugin with the secure mail module, this is included, and this provides you toolbars to send secure mail messages directly from Outlook. And so with this installed, you get a new toolbar for secure mail messages, and so you can add a recipient and a message, and then you can attach files through secure mail. So I'll grab a copy of my updates here. I can attach a file and create a message, and when this is sent through secure mail, this attachment is stripped out of Outlook. It's sent to the server over HTTPS, and then it's AES 256-bit encrypted on the server, and then it'll follow the same process that you just saw. The user is going to get a new message saying you have a package available, and then you can download that. The user really never needs to even leave Outlook if they're using the Outlook toolbar to go and send these secure mail messages. It's very convenient. So one thing about this toolbar is that it uses Kerberos single sign-on or Kerberos authentication, and it has a silent installer. So if you want to roll this out to your entire organization, it can use your Windows credentials, the user's Windows credentials, to send those packages and enable this toolbar. Okay. So that's how the end user is going to use secure mail, but let's look at some of the things that an administrator can do from the administration side of GoAnywhere. So like I mentioned before, the administrator is also HTML5 browser-based, so you don't have to VPN and work on the server locally. You can access it from any web browser that can access the server. And my login credentials are tied to my Active Directory account. And I can log into the portal where you see I've got a dashboard that shows me things that are going on with my system. First, I want to look at some of those logs. So we have some audit logs, and we have all the service logs for all the activity that's happening on the system, and then I have my HTTPS log, where you can see that all the events, all the files, and the downloads and reading of the package is recorded to logs. And I can look at the log details to get more information about those events, like where that package and where that file is being stored on the local server before it's being downloaded. And as an administrator, there might be times where an end user sends something and I want to pull that file back. I can go into the Services Secure Mail Package Manager, and as an administrator, I can see all the packages that are available to be downloaded currently on my system. And I can see which ones are active and which ones are revoked. And I can go and look at these. I can look at this package, and I can see any activity on this package, and I can see the file that is being shared. And if I want to revoke that package as an administrator, I can go and just delete the package, confirm the delete, and then the package is deleted and revoked, and the user can no longer access those files. So the last feature I want to talk about with Secure Mail is the integration with antivirus and data loss prevention servers using the industry standard ICAP protocol. So this integration ensures that any files sent from Secure Mail can be scanned from an ICAP or DLP server that you provide. So you saw on the log that every event that happens on the system is captured to a log. With GoAnywhere, we can also create what is called a trigger, and that watches for these events, and it invokes an action when that event occurs. And so if you want to set up a trigger, you would go to the Workflows menu and choose Triggers. And there's, on our demo server, there's already a bunch of actions. I think there's 30 different types of events that you can monitor for and invoke a project workflow. And one of those events is called Before Secure Mail Send. So when somebody sends a secure mail, when they click that send button, if one of these triggers is enabled and watching for that event, that trigger is going to be invoked. And so I have one here called Scan Secure Mail. And so when the Before Send Secure Mail trigger is sent, it's going to invoke this trigger, and you can put conditions by it. So any secure mail message is going to be sent, but we can go ahead and add, what limitations or how do we want to scan the data or the configuration of those emails before they go out the door. Now this one, if you've been on our other webinars with Dan Freeman, this condition is going to look for an event with Dan Freeman's email, and it's going to kick off that DLP or that ICAP task. So the condition here, Dan Freeman, he's the only person that this is going to affect. So any email that Dan Freeman is going to send through Secure Mail, we're going to send it to a DLP server and just make sure that Dan isn't trying to get any data outside of the network. We can also change it to not equals Dan Freeman. So if we were to change it over to not equals Dan Freeman, then Dan Freeman would be the only employee who could send a secure mail message outside of the network without it being scanned. So he might be in a different role where he's allowed to send a file that's got sensitive information in it, whereas everyone else would not be allowed to do that automatically. And so when this trigger kicks off, it's going to invoke an action, and it's going to call a project workflow. And Dan has got his project workflow to set up, and it's going to read the package content. It's going to read the files and the data that's on the server. It's going to send it to the DLP server or the antivirus server, and it's going to check and make sure there's no sensitive information or there's no viruses on that secure mail message. And if there is, it's going to use the parameters of the project to stop the message from being sent, and then it can do kind of whatever you need it to do. So if you want to archive that file, if you want to send email alerts to administrators letting them know that Dan Freeman has once again tried to send out some unsecured data or tried to send out a virus, you can send a message directly to Dan and letting them know that the policies doesn't allow those kind of files to be sent outside the network. It's really the sky's the limit on how you want your project to work. We covered a lot of that in the previous Getting the Most of GoAnywhere Workflows webinar. So if you want to learn more about project workflows and how they can be integrated into secure mail and DLP or antivirus scanning, I would definitely recommend you watch that previous webinar. And that is the end of the webinar I have for, or no, not the webinar, the content that I have for Secure Mail. I want to jump in and start talking about secure folders now. Jump back into the presentation. Okay. So what are secure folders? Well, they provide users HTTPS or web client access to a variety of network locations, such as those GoAnywhere MFT agents that can be installed outside of your network and in the cloud, any Amazon S3 buckets, Azure Blob, and then file sharing networks like FTP, FTPS, or SFTP. They also provide access to network shares. So if you have network shares on your own network that you want to provide web client access directly to, that'll work. And then they also work with web dev servers. So you can think of this as kind of like a single pane of glass view to give users access to all these different locations from a single place with only one set of credentials for them to remember. So rather than users having FileZilla installed on their desktops to try to manage any SFTP or FTP file transfers, and then maybe like an Amazon S3 connector or an Azure Blob connector, all the users are going to go into the web client where they see all of these folders and file locations from a single place. So they don't have to install any third-party software, and you don't have to manage any third-party software, and they don't have to, or they won't ever see the credentials to access these directly. They're going to use their own LDAP or Active Directory credentials to log into the system. So how we set this up is the settings to a secure folder location are created as resources in GoAnywhere. And once that resource is created, it can be set in a web user profile to be accessed by the user. And we also have templates and group management, so all users who access the systems can be pre-configured to use the appropriate secure folders. So for example, if you have a marketing team that needs to move all of their images up to an Amazon S3 bucket to make available to a web server, you can create one resource in GoAnywhere, apply that resource to a group, and then any member of that group will have access to that Amazon S3 bucket through the web client. And then, of course, all the actions taken in secure folders are going to be written to a central log so that you can see all the activity that happens inside of a secure folder. And a quick diagram to step through what happens if you have a web user profile tied to LDAP or Active Directory and how it works. So the first thing, as an administrator, you're going to get the credentials to these network shares and these SMB shares or Amazon S3 and the different file locations that you want the user to access from the web client. You'll create these as resources, and then in the web user profile, you'll assign this web user virtual folder locations to these shares. You can also control the granular permissions that a web user will have on each of these. So if you need a web user who only has, say, read and download permission from Amazon S3, you can set that up in their profile. Whereas on the Azure cloud, they might need to have all the permissions so that they can upload files, delete files, and make file changes on the Azure cloud. So this user is authenticated or synchronized with an LDAP or Active Directory server, so that if that user ever leaves the company or moves on to another part of the company, that synchronization will automatically turn off any network shares for the groups that they no longer belong to. So the user is going to connect to the web client, GoAnywhere MFT is going to check their Active Directory account, and if it's still enabled, it's going to look at the web user profile, and then it's going to give them access to one of those shares. And of course, everything that the user is going to do is going to be logged to an event. So let me jump back into GoAnywhere and show how this can work. So I mentioned resources. I'm going to go to the resources, and these are all of the resource types that GoAnywhere can connect to for like file transfer and data automation on the enterprise. So a network share, what we've done is we've provided all the configuration features you need to make connections to these different sources. So we've looked at the different types of network shares, and we've set up everything that you need to set up a network share with both a native path to that network share or any SMB version 1 or all SMB versions up to 3.11. Now, in order to get the all versions of SMB, you need to be on GoAnywhere MFT 5.6.2. So if you're on an older version and you want to use this, now's the time to upgrade because that's available only in 5.6.2 and later. So if I look at a network share, if I look at a network share that's already configured, we also have a test button, so I can test this resource, and it's actually GoAnywhere is going to go out to that resource. It's going to make a connection, and it's going to give a list of a few contents to show me that the resource test was successful. Now, this is great for network administrators. So when they're getting those FTP or setting up those Amazon S3 buckets, setting up the configuration for them, they can test them right here and ensure that they work before they ever roll them out to the users. So let's look at another one. We have an FTP server. So these are all the FTP servers that I have access to. I have one called our trading partner FTP. All of the settings have already been defined and saved one time, and I can test this one. And I can see there's a lot of content out on this FTP server. I can look at Azure Blob Storage. And so for Azure Blob Storage, you need your account name, you need your account key, a container. You just plug those settings in and test and make sure that the connection works. That one looks good. And then an Amazon S3 bucket. I've got an Amazon demo here. I've got an access key ID and my secret key ID, which I've already plugged in, and it's secret, so you can't see it, in my Amazon S3 bucket. And I can test this. And I can verify that this is correct. So with these resources stored in GoAnywhere one time, I can use them over and over and over again for different users. So if I look at user management now and see all the web users that can connect to my server, I can look for my K Harris account. I can do type ahead, so I can scan through all the users I have and select the account. And on their account, this is where you configure all of the features and groups and permissions that a web user needs to access the web client. So this user only has the HTTPS server, secure folders, and send secure mail. So that's the only features they can see on the web client, but this is where I can also give them access to other features on the GoAnywhere server. And most importantly is the folders feature. And this is where you can set up those virtual folder locations. So every new web user that GoAnywhere creates is going to have a default home directory for that user. This is just a file that's or a folder location that's going to be on the GoAnywhere server that GoAnywhere can manage, where this user can upload files directly to the GoAnywhere server. You can add locations, and you specify an alias. So this is just what is the name of this location that the web user is going to see when they log into the web client. And in the path, you can use locations that's on the GoAnywhere server, or you can use those resource links that we just set up over here in the resources menu. So I can look at this Amazon S3, and I can go into the Amazon server. I can select inside, and I can maybe say this user only has access to this folder inside of the Amazon connection. And then also on the screen is where I can specify what permissions this user has to go and look at files. So do I want them to only have list and download, and I don't want them to be able to upload or make any other changes to files? Or I can give them full permissions to this folder as well. I have all the connections set up already for Amazon S3, Azure Blob, the FTP, and then 2 other folder locations that are on the network. So the other thing I want to mention, again, is that for web user management, if you have groups or teams of users who need to have access to the same file share on the network or through the cloud, you can set up templates so that when these users are automatically created, they'll have access to the folder locations based on the template, or you can set up groups that allow users, where you can specify those folder locations, and then any member of that group will automatically have access to the folder location that you set up. So let's go into the web client and look at our dashboard, and it logged me out, timed me out. Should have assumed that was going to happen. And we'll look at secure folders, and this is going to be that single pane of glass that I talked about. It goes out and looks at all of the connection settings. It authenticated me as a user, and it gave me all the folder locations on the network. So if I need to grab files from Amazon S3, I can go into that location, and then here's all of my Amazon S3 files that I can download directly from the portal. So I don't need any kind of cloud connector on my desktop. I don't need like a CloudBerry or an Amazon S3 software. I can log right into the web client and get my files. And I can upload files. So if I want to grab a file and upload some file, it'll go directly to that Amazon S3 folder. Now, as a user, I only needed to know my network credentials. I didn't need to know the secret key. I didn't need to know the bucket name. I really didn't need to know anything about how to administrate this. I've left it all for the administrators to handle for me. I can just go into the web client and access all these locations at once. So I can look at and see what's in the Azure Blob storage. There's a lot of files in there I can download. FTP connections, I don't need to have FileZilla running so that I can make an FTP connection. I can do this all from one place. And then the inbound and outbound folders, and these are just the locations on the GoAnywhere server. So again, everything that happens through the web client and the HTTPS connections is going to be recorded to the logs so that you can see all of the files that are going in and out or all the uploads and downloads that are happening with your users on your network. And you can drill down into those events and see, I just uploaded this static putty key to my Amazon account. So as an administrator, you can see all the activity that's happening. And if Kathy or this K Harris user wants to move on to another company, I can just come to her account and I can disable it. Oops, it's K Harris. I can just disable this account right from the administrator and it's no longer in use. Now, the last thing I want to explain on secure folders is encrypted folders on the network. So with secure folders, if Amazon or Azure has like server-side encryption, we of course can work with all of that. But if you've got network or locations on the network that you don't want anybody to access except through the web client, if you say you've got a file share on the network and you've got some sensitive data and you can try to lock that folder down, but if you have maybe somebody with elevated privileges or somebody breaks into the system and gets access to that folder, any of that content is not encrypted. And so you can like work with your users and try to set up encryption methods or manual ways to encrypt those files. But GoAnywhere uses a function called encrypted folders that will automatically encrypt content that gets uploaded to the folders on the GoAnywhere system. And so that is through the encryption menu, and we have encrypted folders, and we have a really easy to use wizard that'll step you through the process to identify a folder, and it'll automatically add AES 256-bit encryption to any files that are added to that folder through GoAnywhere. So once you would finish through this wizard and create your encrypted folder location, then you can set that up on a web user profile. you can set up that folder location in a web user profile, and then any file that the user uploads to that location is automatically going to be encrypted end to end. And the last thing about secure folders, another really neat functionality, is that secure folders can use secure mail to send files directly from secure folders. So if I have this file here in Amazon S3 and I want to share this over this GoAnywhere text file to a user, I can actually send to, and it's going to invoke a secure mail message so that the user is going to get a download link, and it's going to be, and the recipient will be able to download a file that's now stored on GoAnywhere that originated in one of those secure folders. So if you've got a situation where kind of a use case scenario where you've got files stored on Amazon S3 that a support team needs to get to a customer, instead of having the support team have to go up to S3 and download to their local desktop and then try to move that on to the customer if the file's too big, they can do that directly through the web client using secure folders and secure mail. Okay. So that is it for the demonstration on secure folders. So I'm going to jump back into the presentation. And I want to talk about Gateway at kind of a high level. It's one more file sharing security measure that I want to mention. In the environment that I've been using for this webinar, the connection to the web client on the GoAnywhere MFT has been connected by a reverse proxy called GoAnywhere Gateway. So GoAnywhere Gateway is both an enhanced reverse proxy and forward proxy that provides an additional layer of security when exchanging data with your trading partners. So with GoAnywhere Gateway, you can keep your file sharing services like secure mail and secure folders in the HTTPS web client, and any documents in your network can be safely stored in the private internal network. So no sensitive data needs to be stored inside of your DMZ. And this reverse proxy feature allows GoAnywhere Gateway to keep inbound ports closed from your private network. So it's going to hide the locations and identity of your internal systems. It's going to support the FTP, FTPS, SFTP, SCP, HTTP, HTTPS, and AS2 file transfer protocols. And it has a built-in load balancer between to distribute workloads across multiple systems. So GoAnywhere can actually work in a clustered environment. So if one GoAnywhere system happens to go down, the other system will continue running. Two last things to mention about the GoAnywhere Gateway is there is no special hardware components required. It's a software-only solution, and it installs on Windows, Linux, AIX, Unix, and the Solaris operating systems. Okay, that is the end of my presentation, so I'm going to open it up for Q&A. I'm looking at my Q&A window, and I don't see too many questions in here. So, Brooke, if you want to go ahead and talk about what's going to be happening for GoAnywhere and webinars, and I will keep an eye on my Q&A window.
Sure thing, and I think a lot of good questions have come in and already been answered.
Oh, okay.
If you do still have a question for Chris, feel free to stick that in the Q&A window at the bottom of your screen. So we do have a couple minutes, and Chris can definitely get to that. But yes, so in terms of other webinars that we've hosted and talked about additional add-on functionality for GoAnywhere, we've talked about advanced workflows, GoAnywhere agents, our PCI DSS security settings audit report, our secure forms module, as well as Azure and Amazon Web Services. All of these webinars are available on demand on our website, and you can actually go to that URL right in the top left of your screen and just type that in. It'll take you to our website, and you can watch the recordings and also download the slides. And after this webinar is complete, we'll add this one as well, so that's a great place to go to rewatch it if you want, or download the slides, and we'll also send out a link to the recording afterwards as well. So I encourage you to check that out.